Good morning, everyone. I'm Colleen Carmona and I'm your presenter for today. So, probably most of us will spend 30 to 40 years of our life working for an income. So, labor market will help us determine our wealth, the goods that we can afford, who we can associate with, and even which school we would like to attend even after college. So, considering that the major decision that we make is the decision to work, then one of the most important that businesses make is the employment decisions. So regarding to this or related to this topic is important as learning labor economic can help us to have a better understanding and let us analyze of how workers and firms interact in shaping the outcomes in the labor market by discussing this basic knowledge about this topic. So our topic for today is about labor market. So now, at the end of discussion, you are expected to be able to first define what is labor market. The second one is discuss the demand for labor in the market and explain the relationship between the demand for labor and the wage rate, and identify and explain the causes of shift in the labor demand. The fourth one is define and discuss the concept of labor supply as well as its key factors. And also explain the reasons and factors of pay differentials in labor market and also cite examples. And the last one, explain the relationship between labor union and the increased wages in the labor market. So first, let us define what is labor market. Labor market basically refers to the place where the employers and the workers interact with each other. So, in the labor market, the workers compete for satisfying jobs while the employers compete to hire the best workers. Now, what about demand for labor? When we say demand for labor, it refers to the number of workers that an employer is willing and able to hire at a given wage rate in a given time period. So next is the elasticity of labor demand. Elasticity of labor demand measures the responsiveness of demand when there is a change in the wage rate. So first is the labor cost as percent of total cost. So the explanation for this is that when the labor expenses are high percent of total cost, then the labor demand is more elastic. Then the next one is the ease and cost of factor substitution. So in labor demand is more elastic when a firm can substitute easily between labor and its capital outputs. So kapag magkaroon ng substitution effect between the labor and the capital output, then there will be a more elastic labor demand. So the last one is the price elasticity of demand for final output. So this determines whether a firm can pass on higher labor cost to consumer in the form of increased prices. So dito tinitingnan kung pwede magkaroon ng high labor cost sa pamamagitan ng pagtaas ng prices ng final output. So now let us tackle the factors that affects the shifting in the labor demand curve. So ano nga ba yung mga nakakaapekto sa shifting in the labor demand curve? So we have three. The first one is the increasing productivity. The second one is the consumer demand for goods and services. And the last one or the third one is the changes in the price and productivity of capital. So, isa-isahin natin. Let us first tackle the first one, the increasing productivity. So, paano nga ba nakakaapekto ang pagtaas ng productivity sa shifting in the labor demand curve? So, when the labor demand curve shifts, when there is a change in the rate conditions of demand in the labor market. So, once na tumaas ang productivity, ang tendency nito is magkakaroon or mas tataas din ang labor demand. So, there will be a shift in the labor demand curve. So, the next one is the consumer demand for goods and services. So, paano nga ba nakakaapekto ang pagtaas ng demand ng mga tao sa goods and services? So, when the consumer demand increases or rises, then the firms expand output. Ibig sabihin nito is mangailangan palalo or mas kailangan pang mag-produce ng mas marami pang outputs, ng mas marami pang goods, at mas kinakailangan pang mag-offer ng services. So, meaning, there will be an increase in the demand for labor. So, ibig sabihin is mas kakailanganin palalo ng employers na mag-hire pa ng mga workers. So, take for example, is kapag tumaas ang demand ng tao sa pagkain, which is sa tinapay, for example, ibig sabihin nito is mas kakailanganin ng bakery employers na mag-hire pa ng mga bakers sa kanilang bakery. So, for example is tumaas ang demand ng mga babae na nagpapa straight ng buhok. So, mga hair stylist. So, meaning, ang tendency nito is ang mga employers sa parlors is mag-hire sila ng mga hair stylist dahil in demand ang services na nag-aayos ng buhok sa parlors. So, the last one is the changes in the price and productivity of capital. So, take for example is the machinery and the equipment become cheaper or more productive. So, ang tendency nito, ang mga firms ay papalitan nila or the firms will replace the labor capital. So, ito yung tinatawag na intensive production method na once na mas naging cheaper o bumaba ang price or ng cost ng capital, which are the machinery and the equipment, ang tendency ng mga workers is bumili na lang ng mga machinery and equipments instead na mag-hire ng mga workers. So now, let us move on to the labor supply. What is labor supply? Labor supply refers to the number of hours that people is willing and able to supply in a given wage rate. So, the labor supply curve for any industry or occupation will be upward sloping. So, pataas siya. As the wages rise, other workers enter the industry which are attracted by the incentive or higher rewards. So, ibig sabihin na kapag tumaas daw ang wages or ang salary, then mas madami ang mga workers na willing mag-supply ng kanilang labor. Mas madami ang mag-a-apply ng mga workers. So, take for example is the market supply of train drivers. So, it consists of, the first one is the people currently employed as train drivers, and it also consists of people in other occupations who want to become train drivers. So, ito yung kahit nasa ibang occupation pero gusto maging train drivers. Kumbaga, they are willing to switch their jobs. And the last one, this also consists of people unemployed but willing and able to be train drivers. So, kapag tumaas ang wages for train drivers, then mas marami yung mga tao na gustong maging train drivers. Therefore, the market supply curve slopes upward. So tingnan natin ang graph ng labor supply. So, yung nasa x-axis is the units of labor employed per period. So, yung N. And in our y-axis, the W refers to the wage rate, or it can be in dollar per period or in peso per period. So, yung S is the supply for labor. So, kung mapapansin nyo, nung tumaas ang wages, tumaas din ang supply. So, kaya kung mapapansin nyo, upward ang sloping natin. So, kung mapapansin nyo kanina, as we define the labor supply, the main factor that affect the shift in labor supply is the wage. But now, we will be discussing the non-wages that affect the shift in labor supply. So, we have 7, and the first one is the extra pay. So, for example, is overtime payments, productivity pay, the share options. So, kapag once na ang isang industry ay mas nag-offer ng more extra pay, then ang mga workers will be attracted and they will tend to apply in your company. So the second one is the wages and substitute occupation. So for example, if there is an increase in the earnings in the plumbers, then there is a lower wage or lower earnings in a profession of electricians, then it will cause people to switch their jobs. So, ang tendency is iiwan nila yung pagiging if marunong sila both sa pagiging plumbers and sa pagiging electricians, while mas mataas yung sa pagiging plumbers, so ang tendency nila is iwan nila yung pagiging electrician to apply in sa pagiging plumbers dahil may mas mataas na wages kumpara dun sa current nilang job. So, the next one is the barriers to entry. So, artificial limits to an industry's labor supply can restrict supply and increase wages. So, kapag ang isang firm ay mas madami ang mga restrictions, mas mataas or mas madami ang qualifications, like for example is for teaching profession, there is a high or there are many qualifications. So, ang tendency is mag-shift ang ating labor supply to the left. So, mas mababa ang labor supply. So, the next one is the non-monetary characteristics of specific jobs. So, for example, are the risk, the working conditions, the chance to live in abroad, and the job security. So, if a firm or an industry is nag-o-offer ng more pension, or you will have an opportunity to live abroad, to work abroad, so and mas mababa ang risk sa trabaho, then more workers will be attracted to apply in your industry. So, pero kung kabaliktaran nito, kapag mataas yung risk sa isang trabaho at konti lang yung leisure time na ibibigay sa'yo, kapag mahirap yung trabaho, then ang magkakaroon ng shift to the left in our labor supply. So, the last one is the leisure time. So, paano nga ba nakaka-apekto ang leisure time? So, kapag ang mga workers ay mas pipiliin nila na to have a bond with their families, to their friends, kapag for example is for Sunday and Saturday, mas prefer nila is to have a leisure time, then there will be an decrease in a labor supply. So the curve, the labor supply curve will shift to the left. So now let us discuss the key causes of pay differentials in the labor market. So isa-isahin natin yung mga dahilan kung bakit magkakaiba-iba yung wages in the labor market. So the first one, we have the compensating wage differentials. So compensating wage differentials refers to the reward in risk-taking and working in a poor conditions and having to work during unsocial hours. So take for examples are the coal miners, sea divers, and the security guards. So here in the Philippines, for example, we have the policemen and the soldiers. So they are likely to be paid in higher wages than other jobs due to the nature of due to their hazardous nature of their duties. So the next one, we have the reward for human capital. So differentials compensate workers for opportunity and direct cost of human capital acquisition. So when we say human capital, it could be related to the qualifications and years of experience of a worker and their education. So for example is in teaching profession, ang mga master's degree ay may mas mataas na sahod kaysa sa mga degree holder lamang. Kasi when we study, we invest our money for this and we exert effort and we spend time for it. So these are the human capital. The third cause of pay differentials in the labor market is the different skill levels. So sinasabi that the gap between poorly skilled and highly skilled workers gets wider each year. One of the reasons is that market demand for skilled labor with inelastic supply grows more quickly than for semi-skilled workers. This pushes up pay levels. Highly skilled workers are often inelastic supply and rising demand forces up the going wage rate in an industry. So kung mapapansin nyo, mas mataas ang sahod ng mga skilled workers rather than semi-skilled workers. When we say semi-skilled workers, they are usually the workers na high school graduates or hindi mga nakagraduate ng college. For example, are the waiters, the bartenders, while itong mga skilled workers, ito yung kadalasang mga college degree holder which are nurses, teachers, electricians. So, mas mataas ang mga sahod ng mga teachers or ng mga nurses kaysa sa mga bartenders and waiters. The fourth one is because of the differences in labor productivity and revenue creation. So workers whose efficiency is highest and able to generate more revenue for a firm, they are often rewarded with higher pay. Take for example are the city economists and analysts. So they are often highly paid because they can claim annual bonuses from based on their performance. Another example are the top sports stars. They can command top wages because they have potential to generate extra revenue from ticket sales and merchandising. At isa pang example is yung mga endorsers. So, yung mga endorsers, once nag-endorse sila ng product, ang tendency ay mas madaming kikitain ang isang company or ang isang industry. So, they are likely to get higher wages. The next one is because of the trade union. So when we say trade unions, it pertains to the organization that use collective bargaining with employers to protect their members. So itong mga trade unions na ito, they can use their collective bargaining to achieve a markup on wages compared to non-union members. So, ang mga halimbawa ng mga trade union sa Pilipinas is Trade Union Congress of the Philippines, also known as TUCP, and the other one is Sentro ng mga Nagkakaisa at Progresibong Manggagawa or Sentro. So, itong mga trade unions na ito, they can control the labor supply as well as they can increase or mark up the wages in a labor market. So, the last one is because of the employer discrimination. So, sinasabi na kahit saan naman o kahit hanggang ngayon naman ay hindi maiiwasan ang employer discrimination, that you can be discriminated based on your gender, your age, or it can be because of your skin color. So, for example, is you can be discriminated by an employer because of your age. If you are too young or you are too old, sasabihin na wala ka pang masyadong experience, wala ka pang masyadong alam, so ibibigyan ka nila ng mas mababang posisyon, then you will have a lower wages. So, that is an example. So, before we end, I would like to give a summary and some insights about this discussion. So, kailangan lang natin tandaan that the labor market is the place where the supply and demand for jobs meet, with the workers or labor providing the services and employers' demand. The worker may be anyone who wishes to offer the services for compensation, while the employer may be a single entity or an organization that is in need of an individual to do a specific job. So, masasabi ko na ang isang worker ay pwede nating ihalin tulad sa seller. At samantalang ang employer naman ay maikukumpara ko sa isang buyer. So, binibili ng employer ang labor ng isang worker. So, napansin ko dito, kung mapapansin nyo din sa discussion natin kanina, ang common factor that connects the two entities, which are the employers and the workers, is the wage or the salary. The wage or the salary that is agreed to be received by the workers from an employer. In short, there is where the workers can find a job that suits their skills and qualifications, and where both on the wages, benefits, and other form of compensations for the worker. So, salary are not fixed, meaning they can go up and down depending on the worker's performance. Workers' performance. Wages or compensation is the highest motivating factor in the labor market. That's all for today. I hope you understand and you learn something that you can apply in a real world. I am Kulin Carmona and I am your presenter for today. Thank you.